So, as some of y'all might know, if you're familiar with the cooking show that I have on YouTube, Planet with a Palette, I love space. So, I didn't always love space. I actually used to be afraid of space. I used to have these dreams, and it's weird because I recently read a story about like the idea of hell being like an elevator that takes you to like basically just an open space of nothingness. And I had a dream like this when I was young in my 20s, and ever since then I had been really afraid of space, and space kept being like that wide open thing, kept being something that I was really fearful of. I was also afraid to swim in the ocean. That was before I started healing my PTSD. And now I love swimming in the ocean. I actually have some really cool stories about swimming in the ocean. One where I met an octopus. It slithered up my leg and like wrapped my leg in its tentacles and inked me when I was in the ocean. And the funny part about that is I was doing a lot of soul searching at that time. I was really in the throes of my PTSD work. I was doing EMDR, which it's like a rapid eye movement thing that you do. So I had this amazing experience in the ocean where I got inked by an octopus. I was going to the ocean every day at that point in time, going to the beach every single day, going for a walk, trying to clear my head, trying to make sense of all the things that I was processing in therapy. And I was singing to the ocean. I was thinking the ocean, it gives me so much every time I come here. What can I give back? And I'm like, well, I don't want to give it anything back. The ocean doesn't want my stuff. Like, it's got enough garbage in it. But I was like, you know what I can do? I can sing. I can sing to the ocean. So I was like out in the ocean, and I'm like out there, and I was talking to this couple who was really cute and sweet. And I was like, okay, well, y'all, I gotta go. I've got to sing to the ocean, you know, me being the big weirdo that I am. And they're like, okay, do you? So I'm off on my own, and I start just singing. And I can remember the song that I was singing. And I want to thank you for giving me the best day of my life. And oh, just to be with you is gonna be the best day of my life. And then this huge wave comes, right, and washes over me, like takes me under. I get caught in the undertow of this wave. And when I did that, my foot goes down into the sand, and I feel something come up my leg, slither around my leg, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And you have to remember, I had a phobia of being in the ocean. So I'm like, it's happening. I'm being attacked, you know? And I'm like, whoa. So I feel something slither up my leg, and I feel it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's an octopus. Like, I just knew it. I was like, that's gotta be an octopus. But it swam away, and I was like, okay, maybe it wasn't, you know, just calm down. It's cool. Maybe that was just the ocean's way of talking back to you. So later I get out and I go get in my car. Actually, this happened. I was Snapchatting when I realized that I had been inked on. So I'm like out in my car. I'm like Snapchatting actually with my spouse now. We were chatting back and forth on Snapchat. And this was long before we were together because we were really good friends. And I was like, oh my gosh, like there's something brown and sticky all over me, all over my swimsuit. Smells like fish, very weird, very gross. I went home and I started doing some research, and I realized I had been inked by an octopus. So I don't know if that was the ocean saying thank you for your song, booing me maybe, I don't know. But I felt really connected. And when I looked up what an octopus means, like, it is all about shadow work. And I thought, wow, shadow work in witchcraft is something that we do to like integrate our sort of darker version of ourselves, those harder to accept parts of ourselves into ourself. So we're integrating this sort of shadow self, right? But the cool thing is it didn't start as like a witchy concept. I mean, it has a cool sounding name, sounds dark, mysterious, shadow work, you know, and it definitely works out well, like when we incorporate it with our spiritual practices, because it's important work. But it actually started out as a psychological concept. The Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung created this idea of the shadow self and how we need to integrate that part of ourself into our current self. And that's the only way for us to feel whole, is to do this shadow work. And I looked up the meaning of an octopus. What if you have an encounter with an octopus, what does it mean? What does it mean? It means shadow work. It also can mean that you're spinning a lot of plates, that you're doing a lot of things. Both of these things were true for me at the time, but the shadow work is like, I was in the throes of it, because shadow work obviously involves processing a lot of trauma. Those dark things that we've had happen to us, that deep, seated trauma, that is where the shadow self comes from. That's where the shadow self lives. And so we have to integrate those things into who we are so that we can accept them, so that we can move forward. So I was doing nothing but shadow work at this time. And part of that was clearing out all this fear that I had that was keeping me from enjoying things like outer space or enjoying things like the ocean. And so, that day when I was visited by this octopus and by this giant wave and everything, it really spoke to me in a major way, because I didn't get out of the ocean when that happened. I stayed in. I continued to sing. I continued to enjoy the waves and have fun. And the old version of me before doing all this shadow work would have gotten out of there faster. I mean, my anxiety for getting in the ocean was so bad before I started EMDR that I couldn't sometimes even get in, because I would feel my anxiety. And that's something I've always gauged in, like, 1 to 10, where is your anxiety? And if I get to an 8, that means I'm in a bad situation that's going to end in an anxiety attack, a panic attack, which I don't have very frequently anymore. But yeah, I mean, even just the thought of getting in the ocean would put me in an 8, because you can't see what's under there, right? Like, you're not in control of the situation, and that's a very triggering feeling for me. So yeah, it was just incredible. What an incredible experience. And weirdly enough, like right after that happened, I had my friend Tracy come to town. And Tracy's a longtime witch. Tracy has been witching since we were teenagers who went to the same high school. I was a little bit of a late bloomer in that regard. But Tracy showed up, and without any knowledge of any of the things that had happened or the thing about the octopus or any of that, they arrived with this beautiful gift, and they gave it to me, and they told me, now this is for a purpose. This book is specifically for your shadow work. Sorry, what? Come again? The ocean just told me about my shadow work, and here you arrive with this. And so, as you can see, given to me by Tracy Trinity, shadow work. We can go to the darkest places in the shadows, in the space between things, and we can still glimmer and ignite and shine. We can still spin our magic as we learn how to rhyme. All these things. Today was a good day. I swam in the pool. I went on a cruise. I'm a water sign, y'all. Can you tell? With my phenomenal friend. Water heals my soul. It makes me feel alive. It inspires my creativity. It makes me feel all my possibilities. Wow. I'm really sharing some deep stuff with y'all here. The whole point of this video, ADHD much, was that I was going to paint for y'all, because shortly after that, I did what started as a finger paint, and it ended up being an octopus in space, because I was like, these two things that I was afraid of that I'm now so inspired by. So originally I was going to paint for y'all. I don't know what I was going to paint, something in space. Apparently this video is about shadow work. So, shadow work is so hard sometimes, because we have to look at the parts of ourselves that we don't like, but they're part of who we are. And we have to look at the things that we don't want to feel, the feelings we don't want to have. And we have to say, hey, acknowledged, you're having this feeling. It's also the most important work you can do as a witch, but also just as a person. Y'all, it is raining outside right now, and I am just feeling so incredibly inspired. So I'm going to do a little painting, and I will see y'all soon.